It was the ninth straight day that solar, wind, hydropower, geothermal, and battery storage fully powered the electric grid for at least some portion of that time. They have so much solar in California that the grid actually can't handle how much solar there is. Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We're talking about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. Today, I'm proud to say I have engineer Mike Herzog with me. How's it going, Mike?
Great, David. It's a beautiful sunny day out there.
Oh, yeah. You know, it's funny. Sometimes it seems like we're heading into summer, and sometimes it's like, oh, I guess it was just faking us out.
Yeah, it was chilly. It was chilly this morning. You could still feel spring in there. But
yeah. So anyways, let's start out. We're going to talk about this article. California just went 9.25 hours using only renewable energy. So California is kind of a leader, them in Texas, for renewables. But what's interesting about this is you have issues with solar during the day, wind at night. They probably have a little hydroelectric in there somewhere, but it's hard to power a state with the population of California on just hydroelectric. 39 million Californians went about their day. This was last Saturday, so I'm guessing, about 10 days ago. And the whole state ran on 100% clean electricity for more than 9 hours. The same thing happened on Sunday. They did 8 hours. It was the ninth straight day that solar, wind, hydropower, geothermal, and battery storage fully powered the electric grid for at least some portion of that time. I didn't think about the battery storage thing because that's something they really need in a big way in California. And they have some, just not even remotely close to enough.
It's like everybody else. It's lagging a little bit.
Yeah, California first hit the milestone on running on 100% clean power in 22, but it was only temporary. In the past years, it was only for 1 or 2 days and not consecutively. And all of a sudden, we're now having 37 of the last 45 days and the last 9 days straight. Now, California has natural gas plants that keep running at low levels in case backup power is needed. And even then, they're still exporting some gas power, and they're also exporting some of their solar power during the day to neighboring states. So this is one thing. They have so much solar in California that the grid actually can't handle how much solar there is. They can't store it. There's more than the grid can take. This is a problem in us.
It's very interesting when you get to that dynamic.
Right. Well, I know Australia is dealing with this too. Southern Australia, they have problems in cities where everybody adopted solar. And so there's too much solar to go back to the grid. Now, this is where, you and I have talked extensively about V2G, vehicle to grid. The idea here is that your car could be the battery. And this would, obviously, if you're at work, you can't store the power from your solar at your house. But if you have a EV that's at home and it fills up during the day, then at night, it could help the grid by supplying energy back to the grid, not just what your solar was sending during the day, but then in the middle of the night, when wind energy is strong, the grid would then give you energy back at a discount.
This is the time to have that phenomenon happening in California, where it is from the grid perspective. Spring is your lightest load conditions. I mean, we can all imagine that, right? Your AC is not running, your heat's not running. Not that they probably have a lot of heat in California, but they do. I mean, there's some electric heat and it goes through. So your weather conditions are great. From keeping your demand low. And also the fact that this happened over the weekend corresponds to grid lows as well. And I mean, that's just human behavior. People aren't in offices necessarily. You're not at full capacity in these places. It kind of fills in. So this is when you start to expect to see those phenomena starting to happen. And the fact that they're showing up in this space is just a testament to the high penetration levels they have. It's been years and years and years. I can go back to my head to the early 90s, when you start to see all this California, man, they're putting up solar and wind, and it's a product of getting on the adoption curve that early and starting to hit even for a populous state like California.
So according to this article, California has 47 gigawatts of solar installed, both on rooftops and in sprawling utility-scale solar farms. Rooftop solar helps reduce demand since homeowners can use that power directly. On sunny April days when it usually isn't hot enough to need air conditioning, renewables on the grid can produce more electricity than Californians need. Too much solar can be a problem. They make so much in the middle of the day it can't be used. Producers lose money, and some of the environmental benefit is lost. This is one of the reasons why they need more battery storage. California is now home to the world's largest lithium-ion battery storage system for the grid, with more projects opening soon. Last Sunday, the state stored a record amount of power. So that's a pretty interesting deal. We talked about Hawaii a little while back, how Hawaii got rid of its last coal plant because they have enough battery storage. It's a Tesla facility. Tesla is powering Hawaii with they're not supplying the solar, but they're supplying the storage and then providing that. And a lot of people only think of Tesla as a car company, but they're in so many more things related to the green space. There's probably not a greener company, by much out there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, with what they're doing.
It's amazing. It's amazing to see. I can say from the a grid perspective, we always look at the bookends of this stuff and we say what's it look like on the hottest, sunniest, most air conditioning day around. Then we also look at what are your low demand periods, because California's seen it. You mentioned Australia's seen it. I did a lot of study work in the Northeast, New England area. Yet they're going gangbusters for solar in a space like that. And we're seeing that phenomenon where there's no load and it is a bright, sunny April day and it pushes back in more volume than your demand. And it actually, it creates a worse condition, a more limiting factor on your system than if you just left the load around. And it's the dynamics of that space of, if you're an electricity provider, it's you have to cover every second of the year and look at it and how does that fit? And you get these weird little pop-ups like that and go, oh, crud, that's a problem in the exact opposite direction of where we were before. And how do you handle that? And it's the answer, storage or limit it. I mean, you can cut them off. You can always get that, but then your economics get killed. When you look at those options. But it's fun to see this stuff out there, that all these things we've been trying to plan and engineer and talk about for years, like, oh yeah, it's happening. Like it's starting to happen out there in the field.
Well, one of the pieces I want to discuss is this. Grid operators want to add new transmission lines to make it easier to send more renewable energy to other states. That sounds like quite a challenge.
That's the biggest limiting factor in the renewable space right now, especially at grid scale. Couple of factors. One, where there's cheap available land, there isn't people. When we're in Nebraska, you look at where we have space for wind and solar. It's western Nebraska, and it's not highly populated. How do we get that back to Omaha? How do you get wind farms in Iowa to send their power to Chicago and places where these are? And you need conduits, you need roads, you need interstate. In this case, in the electric world, that's transmission. And it is the king of NIMBY, the not in my backyard, that you don't want to see out there because it's beautiful, open vistas, cross country, this and that. And I don't want that thing sitting there. Like, I've got $1 million view. Like, now you're going to build a big, ugly metal transmission line across it. How do you relegate those? It's difficult.
I hadn't even thought about transmission lines. I thought you were talking about the wind turbine.
Oh yeah, no, not even that. Yeah, those are, people make money off of those. That's the other green where people get a lot of revenue for renting that space. But the transmission line, no, you get easement, and it's over, and there it sits, and you live with it.
Oh God, I think about how windy it is in Wyoming. I think Wyoming's probably windier than Nebraska and windier than Iowa. But once again, you're in a state that's not close to anything. You could export electricity down to Colorado, I suppose. You're just not close to anything. You're sitting there between Salt Lake City and Nebraska. There's nothing in western Nebraska, and you could go down. You could go down to Denver, for supplying power, or you could, like I said, you could send it to Salt Lake City, but they're still, those aren't necessarily close. Those are hundreds of miles.
They are. And when you talk about that, you hit all of these natural boundaries. Like, the reason the United States has at least two grids, Texas, I don't know what they're thinking with the third, they're Texas. But I always point out to people, well, what's between the Western interconnect and the Eastern interconnect? It's the Rocky Mountains. But you can't build transmission lines over the Rocky Mountains. There's just this natural dividing line. So you kind of, especially like a Wyoming, or if you've ever been into eastern Colorado, wide open spaces. There is nothing there before you start hitting mountains. But you can't go west. You can't go past the Rocky Mountains with that. All of it has to go back east, and then you just inserted, an extra 300, 400 miles before you hit anything. It's the challenge we're faced with.
Hi, I'm David with EV World News. If you like this video, then please press the like button. If you like the content and would like to see more videos on electric vehicles, then please hit the subscribe button. If you have some feedback for us, please let us know in the comments. Have a great day.